Amazing. I think we are live now and I can see people are joining slowly but surely, which is great. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Inuni, UK. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Degina Weatherill, and I'm the Director of Recruitment within Inuni UK Division, a company of global university systems overseeing international students recruitment for a number of our partner universities. Today, I'm extremely excited to talk about our new partner university, Hartpury University, and specifically we will be covering animal and agriculture subjects at Hartpury. And I'm excited to be joined by Head of Animal and Agriculture at Hartpury, Vanda McCormick. Thank you so much for joining us, Vanda. I also have my colleague from Inuni Marketing team, Sukanya, who is helping us to run this webinar. Just a few housekeeping rules before we start. You're all on mute. If you'd like to ask any questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A section. So that's Q&A section rather than chat section, and we will take them from there at the very end of the webinar. So I really hope you can all stay with us till the end of the webinar. We'll also be recording the session, so in case if you miss anything, we'll be sharing the recording and the presentation with you afterwards. Other than that, sit back and enjoy, and I really hope you find this webinar useful and inspiring. Thank you so much, and it's over to you, Vanda.
Thank you, Degina. Welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. As Degina said, I'm the head of the Animal and Agriculture Department here at Hartpury, and I wanted to talk to you about some of the programs that we have on offer. So I thought it was a really good place to start by giving you a little bit of a picture of what our campus looks like, because this really heavily influences the programs that we have. So we have an absolutely stunning campus, and we make full use of it, and our buildings that relate to our programs are scattered all over. So the campus equates to about 360 hectares. Within that, we have a working, fully commercial farm, which covers arable, so crop production, as well as grazing, pasture, and livestock systems. We have within our campus estate 3 semi-ancient woodlands. We've got a lake, we've got several ponds. We go right through to having a traditional orchard with heritage fruit varieties in there, and also garden areas around our kind of main house that includes an arboretum, so a kind of a tree collection. Our learning within our programs makes extensive use of the campus in terms of the facilities that are out there, those environments. So some of the programs spend a lot of time out on the estate doing ecological surveying, biodiversity surveys. We do something called a bio blitz every couple of years, where we have 24 hours of lots of staff and students and external experts coming and just cataloguing all the species that we can find on the estate. So it's a really big part of the activity in our department. The picture here, you can see a few things pointed out. From the animal side of things, we have more than 70 species of animals on campus that, again, we use in different ways in the different programs, as well as the wild animals that are obviously around. And they're scattered around different buildings. So number one, there is our animal building that houses our aquarium setups, and things like our reptiles and our invertebrates are there. We have a walled garden area, which is where we have housing for our small mammals, so things like common pet species like rabbits and rodents, right up to some of our exotics. So we have meerkats and prairie dogs and skunks and things like that in there. Our orchard collection is kind of like a mini farm, we would sometimes refer to it. So we've got goats in there. We've got a brand new poultry unit that's just being fitted out that will be ready in September. So we'll have some kind of typical commercial breeds as well as rare breeds of chickens. And we've got more exotic things like wallabies and llamas. We have some great opportunities on site where we have commercial enterprises as well. So number 4 is a canine hydrotherapy unit. That's actually an external business called Empowered Canine Physio that is open, a fully functioning business. So clients are bringing dogs in for physiotherapy or hydrotherapy sessions, and students get involved and can kind of shadow in there and do research projects and things. So it's a great opportunity to see a fully functioning business. And then we obviously have the equine centre. So with that, we have stabling on site for over 230 horses. Almost all of those horses are student owned. Actually, it doesn't matter what program you study. If you are if you're a horse owner, you can bring your horse for livery within the facilities here, but it's an amazing kind of opportunity to see that volume of horses. And then, of course, our commercial farm I mentioned. So we have a full dairy setup. We milk around 250 cows a day, and that goes into supermarket food chains over here. We have a sheep flock, normally around 600. Our numbers are a bit lower at the moment because we've just been doing some changeovers in our breeds of sheep, but we have a commercial sheep meat production flock. We have small numbers of beef cattle and a few numbers of pigs as well, but on a smaller scale. So as you can see, it's a really kind of expansive campus, and the facilities we have really do kind of feed in quite heavily into the type of provision that we have. So obviously we've got that campus estate and farm. I think in terms of the why you would study at Hartpury, there's a really big theme in terms of applied science. So unlike a lot of universities where you have some quite general subjects potentially that you're studying, everything we do, doesn't matter what the subject area is, it's got a really applied nature. So you learn the underpinning theory behind things, but then you're applying it. So you've got those commercial setups, you've got those facilities, those environments on site. And so we build that into the way that we assess our students, the type of work that they do, the learning activities they do, the research opportunities they can get involved with. It's really, really governed towards the type of things that relate to industry, that relate to the practices that are going on in the world. We also hold professional standing really important within that. So linked to the fact that our work is really heavily applied and important that we know what's going on in industry. Our staff are very well connected within industry. So we have lots of individuals who work with commercial companies, who work within government levy boards, who sit on research panels for organisations or are members of professional bodies. And that reflects that some of our provision as well is recognised by UK professional bodies in terms of standards that they're looking for within that kind of sector. So it's really important to kind of see that kind of ethos, I suppose, in the provision that we have. It's really heavily linked into students learning things that are meaningful for their future career, and they get that kind of credibility within that. So this slide just gives you the full range of programs that sit within my department, within the Animal and Agriculture department. So we've got undergraduate degrees and postgraduate taught degrees. On the undergraduate side, we have a suite of agriculture degrees. We have degrees around animal behaviour. So some looking at clinical behaviour, some more generally on behaviour and welfare. We have a more general biological sciences. We've got a couple of programs around bioveterinary science. New provision to us is environmental science. Human-animal interaction with psychology is a bit of a kind of a blend of how humans and animals kind of work within society. And then our zoology, which is, as you would imagine. From the postgraduate taught degrees, we span, again, very, very varied, everything from animal science through to a distance learning option to look at animal welfare policy and legislation. We have programs for qualified counsellors who want to learn to use animals within their practice, right through to kind of biodiversity conservation and sustainable agriculture. Now, I know colleagues here from in uni have kind of identified some programs that are particularly of interest potentially, so they're the ones I'm going to focus on. So I'm going to give you some more details around our suite of agriculture degrees. The bioveterinary science and veterinary bioscience, I'll explain a little bit about where the difference is between those and the information on them. And I'm going to cover zoology. And then for the postgraduate taught, I'm going to go more in depth into our MRes Animal Science programme. I'm also going to cover the Sustainable Agriculture Masters and the Biodiversity Conservation Masters. Now, if there are other programmes, then obviously do speak to the in-uni colleagues and they can get questions through to me, or I'm happy to answer questions, but those are the ones that I'm going to dig into a little bit more. If my slide will progress. There we go. So if we start with agriculture, we actually have a suite of 3 degrees in our agriculture area. So the main BSc Honours Agriculture is a broad programme. So students on that will cover livestock and crop, and there'll be elements of business within it as well. Now, importantly, you don't have to come from an agricultural background to study an agriculture degree with us. And actually, we get quite a lot of students who haven't come from farming families, but are really interested in agriculture as a career moving forward. So that broad programme gives a really nice foundation, but that principle goes for any of them. You don't have to be from a farming background. Now, the reason that works is because within the first year, there's quite a lot of modules that are skills based. And again, that kind of idea of applied skills is really important. So students can kind of gain that practical experience. And actually, part of that first year requires 220 hours of placement time. So that's really valuable for the students who haven't necessarily got that farming background to be able to experience lots of different opportunities. And we have a kind of an employability service here that helps match people up with placements, but also for people who do come from a farming background, get the opportunity to try out different systems that they might not be familiar with, to look at different approaches that they've not experienced before. The other two programs are essentially agriculture with a specific science theme. So students can either choose a crop science or a livestock science. The livestock science strand has some specific modules within it that are focusing around aspects of livestock science, touches on things like nutrition, health and disease, that type of thing. And in the final year, the students would often be looking to do their dissertations on our commercial dairy herd, on our sheep flock, but equally with some of the farms that we work really closely with in the region. In the crop science strand, the specific modules in there relate to obviously crop science, but things like agronomy, so soil science, vegetable and soft fruit production. And we have a lot of visits out to see different production systems as well, because crops is quite a broad topic. There's a lot of things in there to cover. So there's lots of opportunity to get more experience as well. Now, a really nice kind of hands-on example of how we have these wider kind of applied things that we build in for our students is within our supply chain management module, which is core for the crop science and the livestock science degrees and an option for the general agriculture one. Our students actually go through the full production chain of cider production. So they harvest apples from our orchards on our estate, go out to a local producer in the area to kind of produce that drink, work with that producer to talk about things like marketing strategies, and then that comes back onto the campus and is actually sold within our student union facility. So they see the full supply chain, they see from start to finish of a product, they see the kind of the finances side of it, the planning, all that kind of wider thing. Obviously, if students don't want to be involved in a project that's related to alcohol because of individual kind of beliefs, that's absolutely fine. It isn't compulsory to be involved in that. But it's just a really nice example of that bigger picture of activities that we have going on. Now, if I move on to some of the animal programs, I gave you two titles. We have bioveterinary science and veterinary bioscience, and they are very similar sounding, but there's a specific difference which I'm going to explain. So the BSc Honours Bioveterinary Science is our main programme. It's one of our biggest ones in animals, so we take around 35 students a year into that. It's designed for students who want to develop their knowledge and understanding of diseases in a range of species, so both domestic species, livestock species, all sorts of different things. And also to look at how we can use cutting edge technologies to develop solutions to the problems that we're getting within the veterinary and the allied industries. So it doesn't qualify you to be a vet. It's about that broader picture of animal health and disease. So students on that programme will study anything from anatomy, physiology, genetics. They'll go all the way through to epidemiology, so the kind of the broader span of understanding diseases. And there's a nice part within the second year of that programme where students can, depending upon their own interests, can choose an option of either studying a module around animal production, if they're more focused on the livestock disease side. They could do a module on biochemistry and toxicology if they're thinking more routes down the lab processes, or they can take a professional experience module if they wanted to look at more kind of industry engagement side of things there. Now, what we found over the years, because this programme is one we've been running for a long time, is that we quite often get students who are going through because they are interested in going into veterinary school. Now, in the UK, you can apply straight to veterinary school to study a degree, but you can also take what's called a graduate entry route. So you study a different degree first, and then you essentially skip the first year of veterinary study. So we see students in our biovet science programme who want to do that. Now, the BSc Veterinary Bioscience programme is essentially a pathway that we have developed specifically for those students who are looking to apply to vet school afterwards. So within that programme, we've selected the core modules, the ones that the vet schools are really wanting to see the students study. We've made sure we've spoken to quite a lot of the different vet schools, so we've mapped it to the type of subjects that they're looking for. We've also built in some more of the kind of the chemistry type aspects that they want in their students. And we've included a professional work experience course that several of the vet schools have as an entry requirement. So that's part of that program for the students on there. Now, because of the high requirements of vet schools in the UK in terms of grades, students on that program have to maintain a grade average of 60%. But the first year of the two programs is exactly the same. So students can enter onto one, transfer over if they change their mind or if their grades aren't there, or, there's lots and lots of different opportunities. And I suppose it's important to note that, again, because that one is tailored specifically for vet schools, it doesn't have a foundation year option and it doesn't have a sandwich placement year option, the integrated placement year, whereas all of our other provision does. But the biovet science program as a whole is a really broad, really dynamic kind of industry right now. There's a lot of sector opportunities there and a lot of graduate opportunities. The last undergraduate program I'm going to talk about today is our BSc Zoology program. And this is really designed to allow students to expand their knowledge of species, to really encourage ethical and sustainable management of populations and their environments. The idea is that we want our graduates to come out of this and be able to kind of positively influence the natural world, to be able to kind of actively kind of engage in moving the world forward in terms of how we manage our animal populations. Now, when we designed this course, we actually went through a lot of engagement with employers. So zoology has been running for quite a long time here, but we revisited it a few years ago and we looked at whether it was meeting the needs of recruiters. And actually what came through really strongly was the importance of field skills experience. So the students on this program do a lot of work out on our campus estate. They do a lot of surveying and practical kind of experience skills, ecology skills. But we also made it a fundamental kind of core part of that program that students have to do field skill experience. So within that, there are 3 options available. So students can choose to go on a residential field course abroad. So we go to South Africa every year. We've been doing that for quite a long time. We have a UK residential field trip option, which is this year we're planning Wales. So we're going to go over to Wales with students. Or we have a non-residential field trip option. So students don't have to travel away, but they go out one day every week for a semester in the second year. Now, because of that being so kind of important within that sector and the way we've built it in, obviously residential trips tend to incur a cost. So we've put a £150 bursary in place for every student on the zoology programme that automatically goes towards the cost. So it either reduces the cost for the residential field trips, or if it's the UK non-residential, it's completely free. So there's no cost incurred for that option. So it doesn't matter what an individual student's personal circumstances are, they all get to develop those field skills that the sector is really looking for in graduates. Now that's the 3 undergraduate programme areas that I really wanted to focus on. In terms of postgraduate, I mentioned it's very, very broad, very diverse. And so I thought I'd start by talking about our MRes Animal Science programs. Now, these are taught research masters where students get to explore how to conduct research in the area of animal science, but in a really highly personalised way. Now, these programs are really popular because they can be so personalised for an individual student's interests. So there are core modules within those programs where students study research skills, they learn how to develop a research project, the current issues within animal science that might influence the way research is being done. But then they develop their own interests and they can choose modules from our other, so they choose optional modules from our other postgraduate provision, which could be anything from equine science topics to companion animal behaviour to regulating agriculture and food production or applied animal welfare. There's a huge catalogue of things they can choose from for their options, but then they can really, really heavily kind of personalise it when they get to their research project. So we have students on that programme who are studying research projects around animal nutrition. We've got people looking at dairy cow welfare. We've got people looking at biomechanics in dogs. We've got people looking at Campylobacter in poultry farming. So it's really, really broad, really, really diverse, and really, really personalised is the important bit for that. Now, what we found is that within that, there tended to be a strand of students who really, really wanted to focus on the livestock side. So the MRes Animal Science Livestock is actually a kind of a pathway route within that where there are no options. So the students all study the same modules. So again, you have those research ones, and they're the modules then specifically around sustainable resource management and applied animal welfare assessment. So things that are really kind of important for livestock science here. And then again, obviously the dissertation can then be tailored to whatever the individual students' interests are. So it could be on our dairy or our sheep farm here. It could be with one of our partners that we work with in terms of commercial farming opportunities. We also specifically put that in because we were aware that there are sometimes funding opportunities for international students looking for bursaries to come to the UK to study agriculture. And so by having that named livestock strand, sometimes that opens the doors for you in terms of your funding opportunities. Now, with the kind of the agriculture theme in mind, we have a master's in sustainable agriculture, which is important to talk about. So this one was designed for our international student interest. So the idea of this program is to allow students to pursue key agricultural solutions to today's industry challenges. So it looks at kind of the broad scope of what do we do in terms of climate change for sustainable agriculture? How do we look at sustainable food chains? How do we manage resources effectively? How do we tackle things like food security and food safety and an increasing world population? So it really is looking at that kind of broad picture of the kind of how agriculture fits into the world. So it's not going to teach you to be a dairy farmer. It's not going to teach you to be a poultry farmer. It's much higher than that. It's about the kind of how does agriculture fit within the global world that we're living in now in a sustainable way. And that's really nice because that means then with students coming from lots of different backgrounds can bring experience from their own kind of areas and discuss about that and share kind of practices from different areas as well. Now, again, that means that you don't have to come specifically from an agricultural background. So an agricultural undergraduate degree for entering on that program is an advantage, but not a requirement. But if your undergraduate degree is not agriculture, what we would want to know is an awareness. We'd want to see an awareness in the students of how their background fits into that kind of broader picture. So it could be somebody coming from a business background who's really interested in that kind of sustainable agricultural business processes and how that kind of fits in. It could be somebody coming from an engineering background who's interested in that kind of how agri-engineering is kind of attacking these challenges. So there's got to be an approach to how that kind of fits in if the agriculture part isn't there. But it can be really broad, and that's something that applicants can talk to our team about when they apply for that. Oh, skipped one. The last postgraduate programme I wanted to talk about is our MSc Biodiversity Conservation. Now, this programme is just run for its first year, and it's proving really, really successful. So within this, it's about students being able to deepen their understanding of the scientific principles of biodiversity conservation, but to really explore practical solutions to real-world problems. So again, highly applied. They spend a lot of time out on the campus estate. And they do a lot of visits out to other locations in the area that we work really closely with. So students get hands-on experience of surveying skills, looking at native wildlife here. So that's everything from hedgehogs, bats, plants, much, much more. And get the opportunity to work with academics and practitioners to learn different techniques. So they get to have a go at things like bird ringing at an internationally important wetland site that's close to us that we work with. They go to visit museum biological collections and talk about the curation of those. They look at the application of drones for mapping habitats, which is an area of research that we have going on here. Now, importantly, within that programme, the course fee embeds some really key things that we built in. So when I keep talking about this idea of what's applied and what do industry want, within that programme, there is a UK residential field trip to a sustainable regenerative farming site. So students go for a few days, they stay on the site, they see all those regenerative farming practices and what that's being done in terms of biodiversity conservation alongside food production. Really, really great opportunity. There are also two really key things that we've built in. So students in this programme will get to do a practical skills certificate on site that's delivered here. So the majority of students have undertaken a chainsaw certificate, which might seem a little bit unusual, but in terms of practical conservation, managing forest, woodland kind of areas, that's a really useful tool for employment in the UK at least. And the last thing that's built in is something that we now run as a kind of an external partner connection called a Field Identification Skills Certificate. Now, this is an industry recognised kind of grading level, I suppose, from the Botanical Society of Britain and Ireland. And essentially, students within this programme get priority position on that assessment, and we pay for their first attempt at that assessment. And they get to kind of identify plants within a kind of test environments, look at surveying, and they get graded on a skills. Now, the reason that's so important within the UK setting is because there are certain activities that you have to be at least a level 3 of that FISC before you're allowed to undertake them. So people who've achieved level 3 or above are really desirable in terms of employers. And it's a really important kind of graduate kind of skill to have, and also quite valuable for people who are looking to move into the UK to work in the ecological sector, because having that skill is the kind of thing that employers are really, really looking for. So that is a case of students coming onto that programme. They're going to do their studying, they're going to have to practice their skills to get to that level, but we will pay for that first attempt within that skill and put them in that programme. Now, they were the areas that I really kind of wanted to focus on. I think they were the programs that had the kind of highest interest levels at the moment. But as I say, I'm more than happy to talk about others. But I think it's probably time. I've done a lot of talking, Degina, if I pass over, and hopefully we've got some questions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Wanda. Really, really useful information. And I'm sure our attendees found it quite helpful for them to understand the programs at Hartpury in Animal and Agriculture a little bit better. And just a reminder before I jump into questions, the GAS Gateway portal is still open for your students' applications. So please submit them as soon as possible. Try submitting a full file if at all feasible. So include students' educational documents, proof of English, statement of purpose, CV, which needs to be up to date, especially if your students have a study gap. That's really important that it's justified within CV, but also within personal statement. And if you are changing perhaps your subject area, perhaps you don't have necessarily the background or similar background to the course you're applying for, do justify it within your personal statement as well. If you still haven't signed the agreement with InUni to recruit students for Hartpury, please ensure you've completed your B2B inquiry via GAS Gateway, or if you still need a link in case if you haven't got access to GAS Gateway for any reason, please reach out to our team on the ground. We'd be happy to assist, and we'll share it after this webinar as well. Another reminder is that the university still accepts scholarship applications for the International Vice Chancellor Scholarship, which is £3,000. So the deadline at present is end of May. So please submit that scholarship application form as soon as possible. That can be submitted via Hartpury University website, and a good personal statement is needed, but do ensure that you have actually submitted your student's application via GAS Gateway first. Ideally, it would be great if all documents have been provided so we can proceed straight for unconditional, and also your scholarship application can be considered as well. So you will have your Hartpury ID, but in case of your students are still waiting for some document, that's okay. Please just submit your scholarship application form at the soonest if you would like to benefit from that scholarship. But apart from the International Vice Chancellor Scholarship, there are other scholarships available specifically for agriculture programs. So you have £2,000 scholarship per year for undergraduate degrees and £2,000 for postgraduate degrees, and postgraduate degrees are only 1 year in duration anyway. So these are the quick reminders on the applications. Again, the interview is taken by InUni team. So if you have already submitted your application Please arrange your students' interview the soonest. Our team on the ground is happy to support with the mock sessions if needed. We understand it's a brand new partner university, so perhaps you and your teams are still learning about it as well. So the team is happy to provide additional support to prepare your students for interviews. And it's only one interview for undergraduate students, which is then considered by the university. For postgraduate applicants, you will have an additional consultation session with academics at Hartpury, but I understand that's just to understand that you've applied for the right course, you have passion for that subject area, and to ensure obviously you've done sufficient research about the university and the program, and yeah, you're obviously making the right decision in terms of the actual course, or perhaps another course could be recommended in case if not. All right, okay, let's jump into questions and we will go from there. Does bachelor's in agriculture include livestock science and crop science as a separate module?
Yes, so the main BSc agriculture has modules that cover crops in it, it has modules that covers livestock in it, and it has modules that cover business. And there are options within that, so students can choose things a little bit depending upon their interests, but it's broad and it covers everything. The two named pathways have those more specific tailored modules that really focus them on the crop side or the livestock side.
Amazing, thank you. While studying bachelor's in agriculture, if a student is willing to switch the program to another type of agriculture program, would it be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of shared modules within the provision, so we can look at that. The important things are obviously which options students are choosing. And so it may be that if they study the first year of the general one and then they really want to focus on the crop, there may be a first year module that they have to kind of then pick up to make that swap. But we've had students change programs as well. The other thing is within our system, within those first 5 weeks or so of the term, if students enroll on one and then go, actually, I really wanted to do that, we can change very quickly within those 30 weeks without a problem.
Amazing, thank you. What are the career prospects after studying veterinary sciences? Does Hartpury offer placement year?
So the BSc Bioveterinary Science has an integrated placement year option in it. The BSc Veterinary Bioscience doesn't, because that's the route that's specifically tailored for people who want to go to vet school afterwards, and the vet schools don't want that. They want to see the grade transcripts going through straight. In terms of the prospects, so I mean, as a university, our graduate employability, so 18 months after graduating from Hartpury, 97% of our students are in employment or further study. As a department, that actually sits at 98%. So for animal and agriculture, there's a huge kind of sector out there. In terms of where people from bioveterinary science go, it's really, really broad. So we have everything from people going to work as kind of livestock health officers, people going to work within kind of pharmaceutical companies, those going to work within nutrition companies. It's very varied because of the type of interest that students have.
That's great to know. Thank you. And I believe most of the undergraduate degrees at Hartpury actually do offer a placement year. It's optional, of course, but students can benefit. And I think for international students, especially, it's a great way to gain experience during studies, enhancing their, obviously, CV, their soft skills, and potentially securing even full-time job after graduation much, much quicker. And given that in the UK, students can still, well, work part-time during studies or full-time during holidays, but then during placement year, they can actually do it on a full-time basis because it's a part of the degree. But also after graduation, they have a guaranteed post-study visa route, which is called graduate route. So it's 2 years for undergraduate students, and then 2 years for postgraduate, and for research, it's 3 years. So it's a great way for students to gain experience in the UK after they successfully complete their their degree. And also, I guess one thing to note here, when students do placement, they actually do not pay full tuition fees. They're only paying a fraction of fee, which is towards the placement, towards the university's career services department actually helping students to find that placement. At Hartpury, I believe it's only 4,000 extra pounds. So it's not that high fee, but like I mentioned, you're allowed to work on a full-time basis during that year. And we do encourage students to actually consider that option from the start, where it is available, for those degrees where it is available, because you can then apply for a longer visa straight away. So you're saving, on additional hassle and money later on. So you don't need to extend your visa in case if you decide to do your placement later. But then if you decide not to do placement, you can just simply inform the university and they will adjust your visa duration later on. So it's good to actually go for this option from the start if you're considering gaining some experience in the UK. All right, what are the most selling programs at Hartpury?
I mean, I can only talk for within my department. So
Sure.
the biggest
Yeah.
programs we would have would be bioveterinary science, zoology, and I suppose we tend to talk about agriculture as one big thing. So our agriculture numbers are big now. So we take around 35, 40 students on each of those programs. Following that would be our animal behaviour and welfare, I suppose. At postgraduate, our biggest program is the MRes Animal Science.
MRes Animal Science, and that is 1 year program. Do students need to have a relevant background to apply for this course?
For the MRes, Animal Science?
Yeah.
So they need to have a background that's relevant to their approach to it. So when I said it's really broad, it's really broad. So we have, for example, we have expertise here around that kind of human-animal interaction. So somebody might be coming from a psychology background and they want to do animal interaction type stuff, and that sets them up really nicely. If they were coming from a really different background and they wanted to study, so they were coming from an art background and they wanted to study something lab-based, that would be more difficult. But as long as it's related to their area, that's absolutely fine. So again, if somebody wants to come from a computing background and look at how you develop sensors for monitoring health in animals, that would work. It all comes down to what area they want to focus on. And that's why it's such a popular program, I guess, because it's really, really diverse.
Amazing, thank you. And I can see there is a question in regards with MRS programs. Do students need to submit a research proposal, or is it just an idea they need to have in mind and perhaps submit it at the time of application?
So I know it's a little bit different within our sports provision. Within the animal science, we don't ask them to specifically put through a fully formed proposal, but that's the reason that we ask to talk to students when they apply, because quite often they don't know the facilities that we have available, they don't know all the research areas that we have going on that they could kind of tap into. And so it's really nice for us to talk to students they might have an idea of the type of area they want to look at, but it might not be a fully formed project. And then when they speak to our team, they actually kind of see, actually, that's where I want to go, and I could see that being more feasible. And within that first semester of that program, we work really closely with all of those students to get their proposals to a point where it's a really nice project for them to follow on with.
Oh, that's really fantastic, because I know some students might be a little bit worried when it comes to submitting, research proposal, because it's a lot of work to put into their application. So you're saying the academic consultation or academic interview is actually replacing that. So that's really good. So that's where they can demonstrate their passion for the subject, why they chose this specific subject area and this specific program. And what's the difference between MRS Animal Science and the one with livestock?
So in the animal science, the main one, students do the core modules around research issues in animal animal science, but then they choose optional modules. So they choose 30 credits worth of options, which is either 2 15-credit modules or 1 30 credit from our other master's level catalogue. and then they do their dissertation. The students on the livestock pathway don't have any options. So the taught credits are already determined. They do a 15 credits of applied animal welfare assessment and 15 credits of sustainable resource management. And then they do a dissertation that's focused on livestock.
Great, thank you. That's really good to know. So we've answered on the research proposal question. Do we offer scholarships for both postgraduate and undergraduate programs? So the answer is yes. For agriculture specifically, it's a guaranteed, so it's automatic scholarship. You don't have to submit a separate application form for that scholarship, which is great. So for undergraduate, it's £2,000 per year, and then for postgraduate, it's 2,000. And it's only 1 year program anyway, so it's a great saving. So please take this into account, obviously, when you are applying for agriculture. What are the unique selling points of animal and agriculture courses that would help our team on the ground and our partners as well to promote those programs in their regions and to explain to potential students better why they should choose Hartpury over any other universities offering similar programs?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bits I kind of picked out at the beginning, so the campus and the facilities we have here, I mean, there are very few universities in the UK now that have a fully commercial farm, and we have a full commercial working farm, and that is a real kind of opportunity that isn't available in a lot of places. But beyond that, that wider kind of collection of animals and the whole estate, the kind of the environments that are here, all those opportunities, I think that's a really kind of important one. So in terms of a place to study, there's lots of facilities, but it's a lovely place to study. You know, if you compare that to going to an inner city kind of university and studying something that's about the environment, but you're in a really urban place, it doesn't quite feel right. So I think that kind of aspect is really key. I think the other bits are, as I said, the really applied nature and that close link that we have with industry. So you do learn the theory on all of our programs, but you will learn what that means to industry, what that means to the world, and what you're going to do. So I think that idea of how you translate the science into reality is really kind of a strong theme throughout all of our kind of provision here at Hartpury.
That's great. And yes, absolutely agree with you. The campus, the facilities, the area is simply amazing. I was lucky to visit Hartpury twice, I think, already. So it's a beautiful and massive campus. So picturesque as well. It's got its own lake, so many animals, which is great for students. And I think it leads to the next question I can see here. Where is the university located? So it's located in west of England, right? So it's Midlands, it's Gloucestershire. It's only 1 hour from Birmingham. So if you are traveling from overseas, you might prefer to actually land in Birmingham because it's the nearest airport. 1 hour from Birmingham, 50 minutes from Bristol, 2 hours by train from London. So it's quite a good location for international students. But also, I guess it's worth noting here that because it's outside of big cities like London or Birmingham, Bristol, the accommodation is actually much more affordable, and it's very safe as well. I think it gives peace of mind to parents, especially if they're coming to study undergraduate degree, so they can select to live on campus, which is preferred, I think, and the option that we recommend to students. There are various packages available. There are packages for undergraduate applicants that are available, which include full accommodation, full board as well, and even airport transfers too. So we can send further information on that. So it's definitely a great location to be in the UK. Are all the programs open to international students?
Yeah, absolutely. They're all open to international. The only program within our department that has a slightly more specific kind of entry requirements is the Masters in Animal Assisted Counselling and Psychotherapy. So for that, people have to be qualified as counsellors or psychotherapists. But again, we can accept the international kind of equivalents to the UK system, but they're all open to international. The other one to just be aware of, I suppose, at postgraduate is the Masters in Animal Welfare Policy and Legislation, which is a fully online master's. So international students can absolutely do it, but it wouldn't require them moving to the UK.
All right, good to know. Thank you. I can see lots of questions are around the background for the master's applications. So do students need a similar background for most of master's courses, or can they come from a completely different background into the courses at Hartpury?
I mean, I think really it's going to come down to an individual basis, I guess, and how students explain within their personal statement why that's the route that they're taking, why that relates to them, and it's partly as well why the interview where we talk to people is important, because we don't want to just take any students onto the program if it's not something that's right for them. So part of that discussion is to make sure that the students understand the subjects that they're going to be studying and that they feel prepared for that. So as I say, if somebody was coming for the MRes Animal Science and they came from a background that was business and they wanted to talk about animal industries, that's fine. We would explain to them about the types of subjects they would study, but it would be absolutely fine if that's the sector they were going to then focus on. Um, if somebody wants to do sustainable agriculture and they don't have an agriculture background, but they're taking computer science and, you know, a drone tech type approach or something like that, again, it's about how it relates. So we're absolutely open down to an individual's kind of basis and how that relates to it.
Apologies, just realized I've been talking and I'm actually on mute. I can see quite a few questions in regards with dependence, and we've just been talking about it prior to the webinar. And amazing news, I've actually just received this in writing to confirm that students can actually bring dependents on Hartpury MRes programs as per the UKVI guideline, which is great news, I guess. Not all students, of course, do bring dependents, but in case if they decide to do so, obviously, they need to ensure that they meet the criteria, the financials, etc. But it looks like they can, which is good. Okay. But also please ensure that you actually arrange your accommodation, because if you do bring dependents, you can't stay on the university accommodation. You would have to arrange private accommodation. So that's really important to make arrangements before you fly into the UK. Great. How much scholarship students get, especially if someone has a very good educational record? So currently we have automatic scholarships for agriculture programs specifically, and they are £2,000 for undergraduates per year and 2,000 for postgraduate, which is only 1 year. If you do want to apply for a slightly higher scholarship, which is £3,000, which is International Vice Chancellor scholarship, you need to submit your application right now because the deadline is approaching very soon. It's end of this month. However, you need to actually submit your GAS Gateway application via the portal at the soonest, prior to submitting your scholarship application. So in case if you miss that deadline, you can still qualify for agriculture scholarship of £2,000. And I believe you've mentioned, Wanda, for the MSc Sustainable Agriculture, that's one of those programs where, like you said, obviously it's considered on case-by-case basis in terms of students' background, but ultimately they don't necessarily have to have similar background or relevant background for MSc Sustainable Agriculture. Is this right?
Yeah, absolutely. So they don't have to have an agriculture degree. We just want to see how they connect their background to the approach they're taking in terms of studying sustainable agriculture.
Perfect. And I can see the next one was, can a student with botany background apply for master's in research in agriculture? So again, please submit your application via GAS Gateway the soonest, and then obviously that will be considered further. The main thing to note here, you need to be prepared for the interview, so the chat with academics, where you can demonstrate your passion for the subject area you chose. So if you have a slightly different background or maybe completely different background, submit strong personal statement and the rest of the documents, and then obviously be prepared for the interview to demonstrate why you chose this specific course.
If I
Again,
can,
that's
sorry, Gina, just to
yep.
help there. So
Yeah.
if the background is botany, they can absolutely apply for the Sustainable Agriculture Masters. They can
Oh,
apply for the Emirates Animal Science Livestock as long as they're aware that their research project would have to be livestock. It wouldn't be crop focused, if that makes sense. So if they're using it as a conversion from crops to livestock, that's absolutely fine as an entry, but they wouldn't be studying crops in the livestock Emirates.
okay, great. Thank you. How frequently do students get hands-on experience at the farm, laboratories, or animal center?
So it really depends upon the program. Very, very dependent upon the program. Um, at undergraduate, so as I say, so the programs are very broad. So at agriculture undergraduate, they have practical work experience, which is not necessarily on our site. It could be elsewhere. They do sessions where they might be doing kind of field walks, crop walks, looking at soil. They might be in the labs. It's very broad. The zoology undergraduate students do lots of field work, particularly in the first year. They do lots of surveying and things outside, and then they have their residential field trips, and they have trips out to local zoos and other sites. The bioveterinary students do a lot of lab work rather than hands-on animal work. Um, and then within that, obviously, at the dissertation stage, the final year project, all the students have the opportunity to do their research projects on any of these kind of locations. Now, around that, the campus is there, the facilities are there. So, for example, any of our students can volunteer to work on the animal collections team to gain more experience. So, we have a system where they can book on to days of volunteering alongside our collections team so they can work with them and get that kind of hands on. They could volunteer to help take part with lambing. So our students support the lambing up on the farm. They could work alongside the farm staff. There's all those opportunities there. And in some ways, it's how much the students want to get involved with. We often have postgraduate students getting involved with PhD student projects as well and gaining more experience that way. In the postgraduate study, again, the taught masters programs tend to be quite theory focused, but not the conservation biology. That's very, very practical, very hands-on. They do a lot of hands-on stuff. For the others, it depends upon their areas that they're focusing in and choosing.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you need science and math background for animal related programs?
So at undergraduate, we don't ask for a specific science background for agriculture. We do for bioveterinary science and we do for zoology. Um, so all of the kind of the entry criteria are available to look at. All of our undergraduate programs, except for the vet route, the veterinary bioscience route, have a foundation year option as well. So if somebody is applying and their background doesn't match, they don't have the science, for example, and they want to do zoology, we can take them into a foundation year. So they have a first year of study, which gives them kind of university study skills, but also underpinning science principles before they then move into the main 3-year program of study. So we've got that option available for people who really are coming from a very different background at that level. At the postgraduate level, we don't have science as a specific requirement because it's very varied. I suppose it is worth as well, if you've got students who are or applicants who are interested in kind of maybe biovet or maybe zoology, the biological sciences is another program that they might want to look at because that's kind of a blending of the two of those, but with plant stuff in there as well. So that's another alternative that they might want to look at.
Great, thank you, Wanda. Oh, that's a good question. Does the university have strong industry connections? I remember it was mentioned when we visited Hartpury, there are links, very good links with companies, around 3,000 potential
Yeah, I
employers, if
mean,
I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess how many companies we work with, but yes, we are very, very strongly connected. So all of the academic staff, apart from being very passionate about our subjects, we all are engaged with kind of research in our areas. We work with industry partners. So some people sit within those kind of industry bodies. We are connected with lots of local organisations as well as national organisations. So we get guest speakers to come in. We take students out on trips. Every year we hold a kind of careers event, and within that we have industry panel come in and they talk to students about their kind of area and how they got to where they are. And that also includes our alumni. So we have a really nice alumni network and we keep in touch with our previous students and where they've gone on, and they come back and talk about the job roles they're in. And so yeah, we have some really good links. And actually one of the nice things is because a lot of our academic staff are working with companies, working with partner companies, quite often at those dissertation final project stages, students will be able to work on projects that are directly industry related. So they could do that. And we've had students who've been employed off the back of that. But also we sometimes bring our employers in as part of our assessment. So for example, in the bioveterinary science degree, one of the final year modules there, we had a poultry farmer came in and said to the students, you know, this is the challenge I'm having with this particular disease condition. And the assessment was the students had to propose kind of solutions and pitch them back to that employer and then talk about the kind of the actual strategy that was being taken forward. So there's some really, really nice kind of ways that we've embed the commercial partners that we have into it.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's also one of the strongest USPs, I guess, for Hartpury. Apart from the beautiful and picturesque campus, it's actually strong links with the industry. And because comparing to traditional UK university, the number of students is not that high. For within Hartpury, I think there are lots of opportunities for students to actually connect with those potential employers, start promoting themselves from day one, obviously get their CV looked at, and start preparing for potential interviews, which will, it will help them to boost their confidence as well. And like you said, the academics are very, very passionate about their subject area, so they can also introduce students potentially with the links that they may have also in the industry, which is great. How many days per week do students have classes?
So again, it depends upon the program. For our undergraduate provision, we're committed that timetabling won't go more than 4 days of the week. For some programs, it's 3 days a week, but we commit that at least one of the Monday to Friday days is clear. And that's really important for students these days, so they can have part-time employment, they can gain experience, they know they've got a clear opportunity. And at postgraduate level, we try to condense the time as much as we can. So our postgraduate students, it would be very unusual for their teaching to be across more than 3 days. But it does depend upon optional choices and things.
That's great, thank you. What would be the best path to follow for students that country academics do not fulfill Hartpury requirements to enter directly? Okay, so I guess students who can't enter degree directly, so let's say if it's undergraduate degree, I assume they could potentially be considered for foundation. It's an integrated foundation year. Is it available for all bachelor's degrees within your
So the
area?
foundation year is available for everything except for the bioveterinary science, the vet school route. So that would always be an option. We do still have entry requirements to get onto that. I mean, I suppose it is worth noting that Hartpury University has a college on site. So if we really do have students applying who aren't even eligible for the foundation year, there is potential that there's college provision here that might be of interest to them. That's
Oh,
not my
yes, absolutely.
area.
There are A levels programs, and I think there is access.
Yeah.
to higher education certificate available as well. So that could be another option to consider. I can see lots of questions around entry criteria. Again, it depends on the country, depends on the course as well. So please reach out to our team on the ground. They can share your country specific or your region specific entry criteria. You can see them by the program as well. In terms of the gaps, again, it will be considered on individual basis, but as a rule, I'd say 5 years for undergraduate, up to 10 years for postgraduate, but you need to justify students' gaps within the CV and a good personal statement and reference letter, especially if they've been working extensively already. For field trips, do students need to apply or can anyone join? How does it work?
So it depends upon the trip and the program. So as I said, the zoology program, they all have a compulsory field trip, but which one they go to is up to them. So that happens within the second year. So towards the end of the first year, we kind of explain the opportunities that are available. They choose which one they want to go to, whether it's going to be one they have to pay for or not, and then we can plan ahead for that. Other field trips are tend to be kind of day trips. So, sorry, the other residential one is the MSc Biodiversity Conservation has a residential that is everybody is on that. It's booked, if you see what I mean. So they don't have to worry about trying to get a place on it. And again, our other stuff, our day trips out, they aren't something students have to worry about whether there's room for them. If we're taking a module out, we take a whole module. If we're taking a program, we take a whole program. So we don't limit the spaces so people can't go.
Great, thank you. I can see there is a question around tuition fees. So just to highlight here, it's 18,150 per year for foundation and bachelor's degrees programs. So obviously you need to also take into account £2,000 scholarship, so that will be 16,150 pounds per year if you're going for agriculture programs. For postgraduate is 20,625, and again there is a automatic 2,000 scholarship for agriculture courses, so that will reduce the fee down to 18,625 pounds. So that's a great saving. But if you're applying for a slightly higher scholarship, vice chancellor one, that's £3,000. So you could, well, you would need to apply as soon as possible. And there are installment payment options available. So once you've paid your cash deposit, which is currently is 50%, which I guess helps students to kind of show less funds on their bank account. So you only need to show 50% remaining fees for your CAS and for your visa. And then the rest of the tuition fees can be split into monthly installment, or you could perhaps pay in one go if it's easier, so you don't need to worry about the financial side of things afterwards. And just to reiterate once again, research proposal is not required, but you need to have an idea in mind. So it doesn't need to be a fully written research proposal. You just need to have passion for the subject and also the idea on the research proposal you will be doing in future. But there will be an interview with academics where you can demonstrate that passion for the subject and explain why you chose this course, how it will help your career, and etc. etc. Any MRES business related? Well, today we're talking about agriculture and animal courses. We covered business programs in our previous webinars. I don't believe there are any specific to business. But again, we can share the presentation. You can also have a look on the website in case if any further information needed, or reach out to our team on the ground as well. And just to remind everyone, by the way, if in case if your students are interested in business programs, there are also scholarships available of £2,000 for this intake, September intake, and 3,500 for the postgraduate program. Is there any content, video, pictures that can be used to help our partners better to promote these courses? Yes, absolutely. absolutely. Our marketing team can share that as well. And you can also find lots of different success stories on the university website to understand where students go into in terms of their careers once they have graduated, or perhaps even where they secured placements, internships during their studies. So please have a look at Hartpury beautiful website for further information. And we will be also sharing some helpful links with you after this webinar, as well as this presentation and the recording of the webinar. I think we've reached the end of the webinar. Apologies, a bit overrun, but really, really useful information, very inspiring. And if you are our partner, please submit your students' applications via GAS Gateway at the soonest. If you haven't completed your B2B inquiry, please do so that we can progress your agreement to the activation stage at the soonest. If you've already got your students' applications within the portal, please submit your students' missing documents and book the interviews as early as possible, because we want to make sure that your students have sufficient time to reach the final stage of the admission, to receive their CAS, to apply for visa in plenty of time, and to arrive in the UK well in advance prior to inductions. Okay, thank you for such a lovely session from the team. Thank you for the feedback. And thank you so much once again, Wanda. Really lovely to see you. And thank you for such a great presentation. And thank you, Sukanya, for helping us with this webinar as well. Stay tuned. We'll have more webinars to come. And we look forward to receiving your students' applications via the portal. If you are a student coming to study at Hartpury this September, we look forward to welcoming you very, very soon. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.